welcome to another episode of the Tippedballs Podcast. I am your host, Sam Randazzo. And I am joined by my two slightly irritable co-hosts. To my right, it is the one and only Uncle Sam.
94 absolutely sucks.
And for the record, he did make it to the car in enough time to get back here with the shades on. Bruce, the cam mic's off? Behind the computer, as always, not actually the one cranking his own chain today because...
Behind the computer, performing white-on-white crime.
We have a chain cranking story to start with today, but Bruce is actually not the one cranking his chain today, but it is Bruce the Tugboat Venditti.
Howdy.
And to my left, it is none other than our very own Mr. Zolo, Mike Palazzolo.
Bless.
Oh!
Beat me to
He
it.
beat you fucking to it. There was no hesitation.
I wasn't even paying
There
attention.
wasn't any.
Before I finished saying the last O, he was already there. He was already
He was at blast. He was fucking quick with that shit.
We're back with some off-season recaps. We hope you guys enjoyed the Scott Hansen interview on Friday. If you have not seen it yet, go to our YouTube page, go to videos, and it should be the first one that pops up. And it is a great watch. Great watch. A lot of good feedback on our friend Scott. You had an interesting start to the day today, didn't you?
No.
Well, you did.
What do you mean?
What happened?
Nothing.
What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
The jerker.
Oh, nothing. Some lady was walking to her car, and she kind of cut through the middle of the cars, like the front of the car.
Right.
The cars were parked next to each other, and I think my man had his passenger window down a little too far. And she gazed over as my man was beating the hell out of himself, and she called the police. So as my man, I think he got a little nervous because as she was pulling out, the police were pulling in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I think he seen them, and he kind of tried to circle around and go opposite way of him, and he just pulled right in front of him and stopped him.
When they apprehended him, did he still have his dick in his hand?
No. He had his pants out. This is the thing. The lady wasn't
Discreet.
She said she wasn't sure. She didn't see his thing. But he was motioning like he was beating the shit out of it.
I'm motioning right now under this.
I think she seen it, but I think she didn't want to
Gaze in.
get anybody in trouble.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She called just as a warning to get him the fuck out of there.
Okay.
And basically he got a criminal trespassing. So
he was
he's not allowed there no more.
Okay. So, but she didn't actually see the penis.
Well, she
hand.
told the cops that she didn't. She seen the hands, but didn't see his Schwanson.
Got it. Understood. So after that got out of the way, how was the rest of your day?
It was great.
After the jerker.
It was great. Warm day today here in Michigan.
Did you do work
Hot
outside over the
motherfucker.
weekend?
No.
You didn't.
That's
No, I
all
was
from
sick.
that's all from
I was
today.
sick all weekend.
That's all from today.
It's for today.
I was going to say, your head is rather pink at the moment.
Well, it's a little red right
It's
now
as
because
pink as
I
Bruce's ass.
didn't put any sunscreen on this morning before I went to work, and I should have. So
Zolo, how was your weekend? Any high points, low points?
I don't think anything happened. I don't even remember. I suffer from severe short-term memory loss. What did I do Saturday? Nah, nothing crazy. Got some friends in town. Shout out Stephen Lee. Friends from San Diego are in town for the week.
Is that actually Dark Lumen?
No.
It's not. We can confirm that Steven is not Dark Lumen.
Yeah.
Speaking of Stevens, cousin Steve, new guest writer to the podcast. His latest blog is out on www.tippedballs.com under Tip Thoughts, so you can go there and give that a read. Bruce, how was your weekend?
Not too bad. Traveled from post to post.
Oh,
Got drunk.
Well, no, remember he was telling us how he was going to go from AmVets Post to AmVets Post and drink all weekend?
Well,
Did
it's
you
just
make it to the
Saturday.
Bruce Post?
Yeah, we did go to the Bruce Post, actually. That was our last stop.
That was Sarah's place.
Fitting that
Very
the Bruce
nice place.
stop was your last stop.
what is it?
Right?
Post.
The AmVets posts.
What is that?
They have cheap beer, right? Cheap beer.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's for the veterans, but
Is it for the veterans or is it for you?
the beer's for
The beer's for you.
me.
The money that you're exchanging for the beer is for the veterans.
Exactly.
Got it. Understood.
So what's it like?
Whoever an AmVet
VFW?
is, I don't know.
Type deal?
Yes.
Yeah.
You go there
Okay.
and drink beer, and the money goes to veterans.
Anyway.
So, we've got to continue on with our divisional recaps. We have a riveting one today.
I got a question real quick. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So you went to the VFW hall and drank beer. Any of those veterans kick your ass in there or
No.
no? Really?
We had a great time, actually.
That'll
they
tell
all
you how
loved us.
fucked up they are. Okay.
How
Thank
many
you.
were there? How many of you were there?
It was just me and my buddy, who belongs to the AmVet.
You and who?
My buddy John.
Oh,
Shout out John. John Boy. John
your
Home.
buddy. Interesting.
Does John
Interesting.
drive a Mustang by any chance?
No.
Okay.
He drives a Ford Fusion.
Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, we have to continue on with our divisional recaps. Today we have a riveting one. It's the NFC South, the Arthur Smithless NFC South. But before we get into that, we do indeed have some news today. And we're going to start out with a very interesting piece. It was announced today that former superstar wide receiver and $88 million career earner Antonio Brown is filing for bankruptcy.
That surprise you?
Not really.
When you're an extreme douchebag, this is what happens.
He also added into his announcement of filing for bankruptcy that he has new music dropping this summer.
Oh, God. I bet you it's fucking awful. Does anybody have any clips of it?
Oh, what? You've never heard AB's music?
No, I haven't. I want to hear it. I want to hear how fucking horrible it is.
And he also said that he will still be retaining his position as full-time CEO of
CTESPN.
CTESPN,
What is that?
Great.
the most
source
honest network in sports.
They're good. CTES. His tweets are. Do you follow him?
I do.
He's really funny and really good at Twitter.
Okay, you can shut it off now. Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang. That's what it fucking reminded me of.
So, and he also wanted to remind everybody that he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he is eligible in 2027.
Oh, I beg to differ. I don't know if his numbers are good enough.
And this is why I wanted to bring this up. You don't think Antonio Brown will be a first ballot Hall of
Is
Famer?
his numbers good enough?
I think he's there.
The way he walked out, I don't think he'll make it first ballot.
What about you,
I
Antonio
think
Brown?
they'll
first
fuck
ballot?
him just to do it on purpose.
This is a really funny conversation. I'm going to go completely off the rails here. I somehow went into a pit of despair reading about Barry Bonds earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a similar conversation. Barry Bonds is arguably the best baseball player, hitter of our lifetime. Hitter.
Yep.
And
Of whose lifetime?
ours. He's the home run king, technically.
Well,
What?
they have an asterisk by it.
So that I don't care about the asterisk because they're all what he got banned for is what everyone is always doing anyways, which is they were using substances that weren't banned and then they were
Listen,
banned.
I remember Barry Bonds. I watched Barry Bonds come up as a kid playing for Pittsburgh. Okay? He was 175 pounds soaking fucking wet.
Yeah.
All right? And he was a 30-30 guy. 30
Okay.
home runs,
Forget
30
it.
stolen bases.
Stop 1 second. Do you think he should be a Hall of Famer, Barry Bonds?
Yes. In my opinion, he should be.
You think Pete Rose should be a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely.
Okay, so agreed on both fronts, and it's hard to you can't discount what Antonio Brown
Right.
did. I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think he's a
I
Hall
don't know
of
if
Fame
his
wide
numbers are
receiver.
good. Where is he ranked?
I just think that there's lesser people than him at his position that are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but the game had changed to his benefit. Where's he at yardage-wise? Where is he ranked?
Ranked, I'm not. I can pull that up.
Can you even see him in the top 10? Is he in the top 10 of anything?
I'll pull that up.
Okay.
But I think you have to remember some of the moments that he had. He's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I just remember him having a 3 or 4 year stretch where he was really good.
I think that's good enough to be in the Hall of Fame, is that 3 or 4 year stretch. I think that's good enough, in my opinion.
I mean, Pittsburgh never won a Super Bowl with him.
But Randy Moss never won a Super Bowl. And
Yeah, but Randy Moss was a freak.
Antonio Brown was arguably...
Randy Moss, oh no, he didn't win.
He was the second fastest player to 837 receptions in his first 9 seasons,
Okay.
behind Jerry Rice.
See, but that don't mean anything because Wes Welker had fucking 6 straight seasons of over 100 catches. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
He was the fastest receiver to 11,000 career yards behind Jerry Rice.
Behind Jerry Rice. So what's his yards? What does he have?
Career yards? He had
smash up the all-time list.
15,353.
What is it?
15,353. So no, I don't think he's there.
Well, he's got more yards than Calvin Johnson, and Calvin Johnson's in the fucking Hall of Fame. Calvin Johnson was a freak.
I think Calvin Johnson might have played for a short amount of time too, but
Yeah, he only played 9 years.
Antonio Brown is 25th all-time in receiving yards.
All right, so where is Calvin Johnson on that? Is he even on that list?
Calvin Johnson. I'm looking and
He's not even on the
seeing
list.
him.
He's not even in the top 25, is he?
He's 40th.
40th. Okay. Well, if Calvin Johnson's in the Hall of Fame, ranked 40th as all time, I guess, in
can
yards.
you sort by yards per game by any chance? Because that's where Calvin Johnson's going to capitalize, I think.
Well, that he still holds a record for yards in a season. I mean, we thought Tariq Hill was going to break that, and that didn't happen.
Career yards per game, and Calvin Johnson is 2, Antonio Brown is 3.
There you go.
Justin Jefferson number 1.
Wow.
And then
Good for a young guy.
And then if we go to receiving touchdowns for a career,
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice is far and away the leader there. Obviously,
Nobody's ever going to touch him.
Antonio Brown and Calvin Johnson are tied at 26 with 83. So
his numbers are good enough.
I think his numbers are good enough.
Okay. Is T.O. in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
I mean, if you're going to put him in there, you got to put fucking Brown in there, I guess. He's kind of a clown, so
the clown factor is the only reason why anyone's
He'll
considering
get there. He'll get there, but I don't know if he'll get there at first ballot. They'll do that just to piss him off, so he does something stupid.
Yeah, so that's the question: is does the clown factor, like, how do the voters feel? And who knows? Maybe there's a proper amount. People thought Randy Moss and T.O. were clowns, and now one of the two of them's in media. So it's a matter of, does enough period of time go by to where we don't, like, he's not in the news making negative headlines, and if we stop caring about him. And I think if that's the case, there's that little grace period, then yeah. I don't think he's first ballot. Well, he should be first ballot, but I don't think he's going to end up as first ballot. Either. But I think he ends up in the Hall.
Like I said, the powers to be are still fucking pissed off at him for his antics. So that might hurt him getting in first ballot.
ESPN.
CTESPN's very good.
In other wide receiver news, voluntarily off-season OTA program things started. I don't even know what they call them anymore, but the off-season programs have begun. Two notable wide receivers. Rashee Rice has reported and participated in all activities so far. So even with...
so they didn't release him? I thought they released him.
No, he's not
after
released.
The multi-car crash.
Nope.
Speeding.
He's
fucking
there
debacle.
and participating.
They did just have a double marijuana possession this weekend, too, though, the Chiefs.
Oh, who was that?
Yeah, both of their tackles got popped.
2 no-name tackles.
Yeah, there you go.
The one guy wasn't no name.
A lot of noise at Arrowhead. I didn't know who they were. And in the other side of the spectrum, Justin Jefferson has not reported. He was spotted in New York City over the weekend, and his agent said that they are currently working on an extension. So I think he's going to be one of those ones that does not report until he gets that extension done. Do you think that one gets figured out?
They got to pay him.
Did they use their franchise tag on him last year?
No, I don't think he's tag eligible until after this season.
Correct.
Oh.
So
That's interesting then. You know what? They might just say, you know what? Play out your contract and we'll.
This is the new normal, though, is guys want to get paid because how it's worked historically in sports before is when you finally do get compensated, you get compensated for what you did in the past, and guys want to correct that now. They want to be compensated in real time for what they've done, and I do think Justin Jefferson's impactful enough to, remember that we had the same situation with the running backs last year? I think it's different with Justin Jefferson compared to any of the running backs.
True.
So I think
they also make a lot more money than the running backs do. So
they do. They make like double.
That's ridiculous.
They make double, but they're more impactful players.
I mean, you got to think Justin Jefferson's it's going to be $35 million a year, easy.
You could think
not north of that.
You could thank Brad Holmes for setting the market because since then there's already been one contract that's been signed for more than what St. Brown's making, and I think Justin Jefferson gets the next one, and I think Jamar Chase gets the one after that. So,
100%. I agree with all of that. Other news: David Johnson retired.
God bless David Johnson.
All right,
should take his jersey down in honor.
His jersey might need to come down now. I see it. Outside of that, that's the news. But there was one more thing I wanted to talk about before we got into our NFC South thing today. PFF released a list. And I know Uncle Sam loves Pro Football Focus, but PFF released a list.
I actually don't.
Is it the top 25 players under 25?
Ranking the top 25 players under 25 entering the 2024 season. And I wanted to talk about this because there were some on here that I thought were rather egregious, and I kind of wanted to start at the bottom. Because number 25 kind of threw me through a hoop off the rip. Number 25, Kyle Pitts.
He's under 25?
He's under 25. He's actually younger than your boy Michael Penix.
Okay.
Me personally, I don't see how at this point, after what Kyle Pitts has
Now,
done.
who votes on this?
It's a PFF.
PFF does it. I'll tell you how much bullshit they are. Go ahead.
Kyle Pitts, for me personally, does not belong on any lists.
No, he's a journeyman. Since he's
Sorry.
came in the league,
That one
he was drafted so fucking high that he's been a disappointment more than anything else.
Number 24, Chris Olave. I don't really have a problem with that.
It's actually kind of low. Okay.
Number 23, Derek Stingley.
He should be a top
solid
10 or
ball
15
player.
He's too low. I think Derek Stingley is too low.
Okay.
Derek Stingley, I think.
Well, he's a defensive player,
So
so
having
they're going
seen
to
the
be pushed
list,
to the
I
bottom.
know who's number 2, and it's also a cornerback, and I think Derek Stingley is currently better and will be all around better than the player that's at number 2.
And there's another DB on there that I thought was egregiously low. Number 22, Jalen Carter.
I agree with that.
Number 21, Jahmyr Gibbs.
When they do the list next
Okay.
year, Jalen Carter will be higher up.
He's gotta be.
He'll be a top 10 player.
Jahmyr Gibbs at 21.
Hey,
20.
he made the list. That's good.
20, Tyler Liederbaum.
There's 5 Lions.
He's tough. He's a good player.
19, Sam Laporta.
You
Yeah.
can make a case that he's too low.
I'm sorry, I think he's too low too.
He's
I
the
think
best
Well,
tight
let's
end in
keep
football.
going. Let's see who else was on the list.
Greg Russo.
He's ahead of fucking Kyle Pitts.
Well, he's
Kyle Pitts was drafted a lot fucking higher than he
yes,
was.
but again, right now, like just off the rip, name 3 tight ends better than Sam
But
Laporta.
hold on.
In the
Kyle
league.
Pitts was a top 5 pick.
That's great, but I don't care. He shouldn't
I don't
be on
care
the
either.
fucking
I'm just
list.
saying he's in front of him, so that's
Right
fine
now,
with me. Go
Laporta
ahead.
is a top 2 tight end.
Who else is in there?
18, Greg Russo.
I think that's a little high for him.
I think that one is too.
Like Bills end.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just
I'm
my
not even
opinion.
sure why he's on the list.
I'm not
he's
sure why
he's
on
a little.
the list.
That's a little high.
17, Javon Holland. Safety, Miami Dolphins.
Okay,
Good player. Don't know if he's
he's decent,
a
man.
little bit high.
I'm taking Brian Branch over him.
16, Bijan Robinson.
16. Okay.
I'm sorry. He didn't do anything. He did not produce
mean?
enough last year.
He produced last year.
I mean, But he didn't produce as much as Gibbs.
That's not his fault.
Listen, hold
it's
on.
the asshole that was running the team.
The numbers are neck and neck, and he actually does have Gibbs beat in a lot of categories, but he also played more games and had double the snaps that Gibbs had. So
But-
I know where you're coming
and then disappeared from the fucking graces of the
Arthur
the
Smith.
NFL
It
for
was
the
coaching.
last 5 weeks of the season.
That was coaching.
15. Tyler Smith, Cowboys offensive line.
Who?
Tyler Smith. He's played
I don't know.
2,300 snaps at 23 years old.
Okay, that's pretty goddamn good.
14. Will Anderson.
Another guy that could be higher a year from now. But
No, I
a
think
good
that's
spot.
that's
for him.
about right. Let's say it's about offense. They don't care about defensive players
Okay.
unless you're
13.
Sauce Gardner. They don't care.
13.
Yeah.
And this is where the argument starts for me.
Okay,
Pat Surtain.
Patrick Surtain.
Again, I'm taking Stingley over Surtain. But again,
I'm taking Stingley and Surtain.
over number 2.
Over number two.
Same.
All right.
Agreed.
Okay,
12. Puka Nacua.
Too high. I think it's a one-off season. We'll see if he does what he did again.
is he the
this
first
year.
receiver off on the board there?
No, there's a receiver right in front of him that
Okay.
plays for the Lions.
Number 11. Amon-Ra St. Brown. And it undoubtedly, Amon-Ra is better.
That to me is a little low.
That's low. That's
low.
I just don't
Without
think they're
being
neck and
that
neck.
No.
Amon-Ra St. Brown's a top 3 receiver in the game of
That's what I'm
football at the
saying.
moment.
This one, for me, okay, remember, DBs, we've already gone through Stingley
Right,
and Surtain.
right.
10, Trent McDuffie.
Guy won a Super Bowl. He's
I
been
don't
fucking
care.
solid. He's been solid.
I would
Hey,
take number
he-
2 over Trent McDuffie.
I would take both of the ones that we've said already and number 2.
Well,
over
you know
Trent
what? I don't think McDuffie gets enough credit. He's a really good nickel corner, and that's what he is. He
And
plays on the
forget-
line of scrimmage.
He had L'Jarius Sneed there too.
True.
So he didn't really have to be the all-encompassing guy. Now he's got to be the all-encompassing guy.
Okay.
Garrett Wilson at 9.
Garrett Wilson at 9.
I'm not taking him over.
I'm not taking him.
No, I
over
would
St.
take a St. Brown over him
Agree.
just because of this and this only. Garrett Wilson hasn't had a quarterback thrown to him, so I will give him that much. But St. Brown has produced so much more than these other guys.
Number 8, Brock Purdy.
What?
There's no other quarterback though, right?
Is there any other quarterbacks in there?
Yes, there is.
Oh, there's one.
All right, go ahead.
There's one, and I don't think
Actually, there's 2, and it's a joke.
I don't think one of the 2 should be in front of him. But
One of the 2, right now, as it stands, definitely should not be in front.
Yeah.
Of him. Number 7, C.J. Stroud.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that either.
And
In
he
my
could
opinion,
also, when they make this list next year, he's going to be higher.
he's too low.
Okay.
Number 6, Aiden Hutchinson.
Too high.
Saw that coming.
What? I just think it's too high for a defensive end. You got Will Anderson's below him.
Production.
You're going to put Aiden Hutchinson in front of C.J. Stroud? Or even in front of
I
your
agree
Brock
with that.
Purdy?
I think Stroud is egregiously low.
Okay.
Like I think Stroud should be top 3 on this list. Personally,
They gave
Well,
preference.
Purdy too. I mean, Purdy's had
It's
1.5 good years.
they gave preference to guys that are a little. You'll notice that to guys that are a little older. So again, a year from now, they do this list every year.
Right.
A year from now, this list is going to look different,
Correct.
and guys graduate from the list as well.
personally, to have C.J. Stroud and Brock Purdy neck and neck like you had Puka and Amon-Ra, that's a disservice
No,
to Stroud.
and the quarterback that's in front of the 2 of them should
be below both of them.
Yeah.
So 6 is Hutchinson. 5 is Kyle Hamilton, which I don't have an issue with.
No, he's been the best safety in football for the past
So
2 years.
he's the
Top
best
3
safety
safety.
on this list, but I don't think he's a top 10 player on this list. I think there's.
I
10
agree with
people that are
that.
Better. Yeah,
I agree with what you just said.
but he's the best safety that for sure on the list.
4 is Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
That's kind of low.
totally okay.
Okay.
That's the only guy I would take over Amon-Ra.
Number 3 is Trevor Lawrence.
What?
Yeah,
Number 3.
Number 3 is Trevor Lawrence.
I'm taking Purdy and obviously Stroud.
I would take Purdy over him.
taking-
I'd Stroud over him.
So far on the list, guys, we'd take over
Okay.
Trevor Lawrence. Jamar Chase. I'd take Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah,
Hutchinson.
Agreed.
Stroud.
Agreed.
Purdy.
Agreed.
He's Garrett Wilson.
Agreed.
McDuffie.
Close, but I'd give it to McDuffie.
Amon-Ra. Puka.
Puka Nacua's done it
Surtain.
1 year. I want to see what he does here this year.
Will Anderson.
I'd take him over.
The offensive lineman, Tyler Smith.
Gets tricky.
Now we're there. So realistically, you want to put Trevor Lawrence 15 right now the way he is?
Yeah.
That's fine. 3 for me, egregiously high. Number 2 is Sauce Gardner.
Again, I'm taking a lot of guys that have been named on this list over Sauce.
I'm taking Kyle Hamilton.
Including 2 corners on this
Yes.
list. I'm taking over
I agree
Sauce
with
Gardner.
that. And number 1 is Penei Sewell.
I agree with that.
And that's not up for debate.
The best player under 25 in football.
And he's 23, by the way, so he'll be on this
Fuck,
list
he'll be on
another
that
2
list
years.
2 more years? Wow.
Yeah. So
Well,
one,
okay.
if we learn anything from this list, it's that Brad Holmes has done an amazing fucking job so far. Those are all his guys.
So far. Yeah.
1/5 of the list is composed of Lions.
Right.
So you can't.
Normally you wouldn't have a Lion on there, so
Correct.
I'm pretty fired up about
You could
that.
put a Lee McNeil on this list, too, if you wanted to. And he would fit in. That's just my opinion.
Instead of Kyle Pitts, yeah,
Brian-
I'll take him at 25. Yeah.
Brian Branch could be on this
Kyle
list.
fucking Pitts. Really?
Brian Branch could easily be on this
Brian
list.
Branch, I agree, could be on this list.
Kyle fucking
And if we learn anything, the Trevor Lawrence thing at 3, has Trevor Lawrence just fallen out of everyone's good graces extremely fast? Or is this guy washed before he turns
No,
25?
I think there's just issues in Jacksonville. I think that's a bigger picture conversation, and I don't think this is going to be the year that gets corrected either.
I don't
think it's just a way bigger.
It's got to
picture
get worse
conversation.
before it gets better. Personally.
Maybe. I mean, there's injuries, there's lack of receivers, there's lack of identity offensively. I want to see what Trevor Lawrence.
I think
looks
that was
like.
the biggest thing with them.
No identity.
They have no identity. They're just out there fucking going through the motions.
I want to see
That was
what
the
they
biggest
look like
thing.
when everything's ticking, when ETN's healthy, when the offensive line is good and they're not giving up sacks. I want to see what he looks like with Brian Thomas, who could be one of the best pass catchers he's ever had. I want to see what everything looks like when it's all going.
Yep.
But yeah, they could be bad. They could be pretty fucked up.
Sorry, I could see that in the view and it was bothering me. Anyways, yeah, so that is the 25 under 25 list.
Okay.
My change would definitely be Trevor Lawrence needs to go lower. But
Kyle Pitts shouldn't be on that fucking list.
how do you feel about Brock Purdy at 8?
I think that's high.
Okay, second quarterback, which is where I think he's the second quarterback. I think we can come up with a few guys that are better. I don't know if he's a top 10 player. But I'm with you on second
Purdy?
quarterback. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. After Stroud, for sure.
Garrett Wilson should probably go. Garrett Wilson.
Stroud should be in the top fucking 3.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, let's be honest. What he did fucking last year, and I'm not taking nothing away from Birdie. I know he's had his little nice numbers and all that shit. But as far as a guy that'll come in and rip your heart right out your asshole, that's CJ Stroud.
So I'm worried, and you know me, devil's advocate all the time.
Yeah.
I'm worried what happens if he doesn't, and I think he's going to be fine and he's going to can pick up where he left off last year. What happens if he doesn't?
Well,
We have to
listen,
talk about that.
He's not going to surprise anybody. The tape is out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's out there, and everybody knows. Everybody's on alert. Just like Brock Purdy's not going to fucking surprise anybody anymore either. It's all out there. It's out there. People are going to game plan for him. Let's see how he reacts to that sophomore season.
Yeah. That's in my opinion, that's one of the main storylines of the NFL this year.
Right.
Is everyone's high. Like,
If you remember Trevor Lawrence, his first fucking year in the league, he was solid.
He was
man.
solid.
He was fucking solid.
More often, I know you're going with this. More often than not, there's a year two regression.
Right.
There's a year 2 regression, and it's not exclusive to quarterbacks. It could happen
Right.
to anybody. I know where you're going, but we need to. People are high as fuck on Houston. Really high.
They're all in. That's
like
why.
one of the teams the Lions are not favored against, and if you go people picking the Lions schedules, one of the games that the Lions are not getting picked in is the Houston game. I don't see it personally because I see a team that just got absolutely dismantled in the playoffs by Baltimore. That being said,
Yeah, but you're looking at a team that absolutely got punched in the ass against Baltimore too.
that
So
was the
I
regular
understand.
season,
I
and
understand. That's why.
different.
But this is why you're seeing a young team that got bounced in the playoffs is actually being favored against a team that made it deeper than they did in the playoffs. So
I don't want to compare it like that. I'm leaving it where they stood the last time I saw them. I don't want to compare the Lions and them and how your offseason was. The Texans had a monster offseason.
yeah,
Monster. They had an okay draft, but they had a really good free agency, and they made good trades. They brought in Joe Mixon, and there's 100%. But like
Stephon Diggs.
the one peg that has Stephon Diggs. Sorry, excuse me for forgetting that. And we're missing someone else too that they acquired. The one peg that has
Mixon
to hold
thing
up
is huge.
is Stroud. And if the Stroud peg comes out, it completely changes the trajectory of the Texans this year. Completely. Even within their own
Who's
division.
the backup quarterback there?
And Houston,
Yes,
It's still Davis Mills.
Mills probably.
there you go. They're in good hands with Davis Mills.
You think so? Let's move on and talk about the NFC South and start off with the team that has a plethora of quarterbacks now, most of which Uncle Sam loves. And that is the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, I am still in mourning over the loss of Arthur Smith as their head coach.
Best thing that could have happened if that franchise was getting rid of his ass. Go ahead.
And they had their fair share of
I and Mr. Solo over here do not care for Arthur Smith. Go ahead.
of Arthur Smith. They had their fair share of coaching candidates. They interviewed both Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick, passed on both of them, and hired Raheem Morris away from the Rams.
I don't think, I'm going to be honest with you, Harbaugh didn't want that job.
I don't think either of them really wanted
And I don't think Belichick.
I think Belichick.
And I'm sure Belichick sabotaged his fucking interview. Because that's
you know,
how he is.
I totally buy into the fact that Robert Kraft stepped in and talked to Arthur Blank and sabotaged the whole thing. I believe that.
Maybe that's why they don't get along.
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
You know, just because they wouldn't get them them 4 first-round picks from Frisco.
So Raheem Morris brought in 2 other Rams with him. Offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, who was the Rams passing game coordinator, and Jimmy Lake as the defensive coordinator, who was the Rams assistant head coach.
Okay.
Then they went ahead, because nobody saw Desmond Ridder as fit anymore, and signed Kirk Cousins.
Can I say something real quick?
Of course. Have at it.
Kirk Cousins last week was on. Do you guys ever listen to Bussin' with the Boys?
Yes.
The Taylor Lewan and
I did
Will
not see
Compton.
this one, but I do usually listen.
So they've been going around, and they got a couple Falcons, but I listened to the Cousins interview last week, and it is so fucking good. It's so good, and it's not good because of them, because I don't think they're good. I don't think their show's good. I don't think they're good at interviewing people. It's good because of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, they touch on everything, and the way his responses to everything are just incredible. And the way he thinks through all his processes, and it's not like we didn't know that before. Like we've all been pretty high on Kirk Cousins as long as I've been doing this with you guys. And this is coming from a Michigan fan. Kirk Cousins is just absolutely incredible. He even talked about that. He even talked about how he grew up. Like he's like, yeah, if I got an offer from Michigan, I would have went. And like D'Antonio made me work for it. There were 5 quarterbacks in front of me that had to turn down their offer in order for me to go to Michigan State, and they all did. And then they still talked to a 6th one after I committed. And just the way he talked about everything, his Achilles, his time in Washington, his time, how it ended with Minnesota, how Atlanta unfolded, the Michael Penix thing, I don't think he's capable. I don't think he's a bad bone in his body. And for that reason alone, I will always root for Kirk Cousins. For that reason alone, I do think that is a massive, of course, on paper, it's a big upgrade at quarterback, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
On paper.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think Kirk Cousins is a top 10 or top 12
if he's
quarterback.
healthy.
If he's healthy.
If he's ready to
If
go.
he's healthy. For that reason, what he brings to the locker room, and of course, there's boom or bust potential. He's going to throw bad interceptions. He's going to have bad. He's Stafford. Kirk Cousins and Stafford are the same quarterback. I think that puts them this is something that they haven't had since Matt Ryan's. Was Matt Ryan MVP?
I believe he did win it once.
Yeah, since then. And this is big for them with the personnel that they have. I think this is good. I think that's a great. That's the biggest offseason free agent signing was Kirk Cousins to the Falcons.
So
Said it.
I can't disagree with you. I can't. It's a team that has not had a quarterback since Matt Ryan left. And
No. It goes further back.
well,
Since Matt Ryan was good.
since Matt Ryan took them to the Super Bowl and they got ass pummeled by Tom
Yes,
Brady.
there you go.
Okay? They haven't had a quarterback since then. And they must have been confused that they signed a guy for 4 years, $180 million, because then at pick 8, they went and drafted none other than Uncle Sam's own Michael Penix.
Best quarterback in this draft.
What about in the league? Is he the best quarterback in the
Best
league?
quarterback in this draft that just happened.
And
Too bad he won't be able to, unless Kirk Cousins gets hit by a fucking train, he's not going to be able to prove that.
well, there's another glitch in this matrix for you, and you might turn into an Atlanta fan after this. Taylor Heineke is number 3 on the depth charts, though.
That surprise you?
It's your boy.
Does it surprise you, though?
I
Penix is the real thing, and everybody knows that.
You think Heineke gets any playing time this year? If Arthur Smith
they
is there,
they will in the 2 preseason games they're going to play.
you think so?
Yeah.
So we talked about this a little bit. The logic behind the Cousins and Penix duo, when you do have other gaps on this team that you need to fill.
Somebody told Cousins, I don't know who the fuck it was, but somebody told Cousins that they were not interested in drafting a quarterback.
Correct.
And that's exactly what the fuck they did. So I don't know why these two didn't see eye to eye. I understand why they did.
Who's these two, Atlanta and Cousins?
Yes.
Sorry.
Whoever, I don't know if it's the GM there. I have no idea. I don't think it was Arthur Blank. I think it was the GM. But they decided to go with a quarterback because I don't know if they feel that Cousins is going to be ready for the season to start.
For example, okay, they picked at 8, right? Mm-hmm. So Roma Dunze was there. Who was the other receiver that went shortly after him?
Brian Thomas.
Brian Thomas was there.
Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers.
Defensively, you had
They needed defense.
they needed defense.
Dallas Turner.
They did
Yeah.
a decent amount on defense through the draft, but what I've picked up on is you went out and you solved your issue at quarterback and brought in Kirk Cousins for a lot of money. Drake London is your number 1 receiver. And I know you think he's inconsistent at best. I'm not all that high on him. And after him, if you look at their depth chart right now,
See, you can't judge Drake London because of this, and I'm going to say this only: their offense was so predicated around I don't even know what. It's another team that had no identity. The year prior to that, they were absolutely smashing people. They were running the football down people's throats. Didn't happen last year. The year before, they led the league in rushing, and then last year you had this debacle last year. Because they didn't have a fucking quarterback.
the thing is you already had your quarterback. So in the draft, why not go out and get another pass catcher to go along with the Drake London, Kyle Pitts,
How do we know
Darnell
Raheem Morris
Mooney?
didn't ask for this?
Maybe he did. Maybe he thinks that this Kirk Cousins thing is a 3-year deal, and then you're going to get.
I don't even think they think it's a 3-year deal, to be honest with you.
Kirk Cousins doesn't think it's a 3-year deal. Kirk
He
Cousins
knows
doesn't
it's
think
not.
a 4-year deal. Kirk
Yeah.
Cousins thinks he wants to play. He said it on that podcast. He goes, whatever contract I signed, I don't want it to be my last. Like, I'm always intending on one more year after that, pending whatever.
Right.
But he goes, I'm intending to play after the contract.
That's the brain of a rich man.
Which I'm sure he told them as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure he said that to them.
correct.
They have a problem. This Michael Penix thing is very bad for them. If Kirk Cousins comes out, lights it up all 4 years, never relinquishes his starting spot,
Then you have a 28-year-old quarterback that's never seen the field.
and you spend a first rounder on him. And it happens. I mean, teams take risks all the time. The 49ers
Brandon Whedon. Who drafted Brandon
Cowboys.
Whedon? The Browns?
Oh, yeah, was
it Cleveland?
Sorry, he ended
Yeah,
up.
Brandon Whedon, when he got drafted, was 28 years old.
He'd already had a pro baseball career that came and went
Right.
by the time he got to Oklahoma State.
Right.
On this situation, though, in particular, you could survive this, right? If you pull the pin out on Penix at the right time, like if someone sees enough, you could trade him.
Yeah, you know what? If they think he's ready, I wouldn't be surprised me if they trade Cousins. That wouldn't surprise me.
Because here's the thing. If Cousins is playing good enough,
You don't
Right.
give up on
you're not going to trade him.
Right.
And if he's playing bad enough, nobody's eating that contract.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's
Yeah.
that's how they're going to approach Cousins.
They traded my boy, Desmond Ridder to Arizona.
Oh, God.
Who I do think at some point will
Is
start.
he even on the depth chart?
He is.
Okay.
In exchange for Rondale Moore.
Okay. Is he?
He's currently 3 on the Falcons depth chart.
So they added Rondale.
No.
Moore and
Where
Darnold.
is what's his name at?
Who?
Ritter. Where's he at on
Arizona.
Arizona's depth chart?
He's got to be 2. That's my opinion.
You think so?
Yeah.
You're going to give up Rondell Moore for him?
I mean, okay, Rondale Moore is not some sort of fucking elite prospect.
They're loaded at receiver now. We just had this conversation the other day. I think,
Right.
I think
Desmond
they have good
Ridder-
pass catchers.
Desmond Ridder is 2 on the depth chart in front of Clayton Tune.
To get a decent
I personally would take Clayton Tune over him.
Then they went out and got Darnell Mooney, 3 years, $39 million. They overpaid for him.
I don't think so. I think Mooney's a pretty good receiver, to be honest with you.
I
I just don't think he gets his
nightmare,
chances.
I think he's good. I think he's a quality receiver. I wouldn't call him really good. I think he's quality. I don't know. Just like he wasn't a good enough compliment to DJ Moore last year.
He's not going to be a good enough compliment for Drake. long-
Yeah, but you know what? His looks were few and far between. I think it's more of based on what these teams are doing offensively, because we're saying he wasn't a good compliment, but if you remember last year they were going to Komet a lot because he was the odd man out. So they were doing kind of a tight end receiver thing, just like Detroit does.
If you're arguing that he needs more reps to look better, I don't disagree.
He does. He needs
totally
more.
be the case.
They also brought in Ray McLeod at wide receiver.
Gee, that'll solve everybody's fucking problem, won't it? Ray McLeod.
Squared McLeod.
Didn't I see him in the parking lot this morning? All right.
Some re-signings. Tight end Charlie Warner. Linebacker Nate Landman. Center Ryan Newsel. Defensive tackle Kentavious Street. Wide receiver Cadrell Hodge. And offensive tackle Storm Norton. Notable losses. Tight end Jonnu Smith. I'm a big Jonnu Smith guy.
Okay.
And cornerback Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, that's a big loss.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, and Zola will probably know better than me, I don't think Okudah had that bad of a year last year.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
I think he had a mildly decent year. We're not going crazy here or anything, but then getting to their draft, obviously 1-8, they took Michael Penix.
But if Jeff Okudah had a good year last year, I think he'd still be there this year. I'll just say that.
Where did Jeff Okudah sign anywhere yet?
The Houston Texans.
There you go. Part of that depth chart thing.
Number 2, second round pick, 35. They took Rook
Ororo. He's from here. He went to River Rouge. He's from Nigeria, but he went to River Rouge. The Lions looked at him, took a good hard look. Listen, in the middle of the draft here, they actually did really well. They did really well. They got some guys that could end up starting for them.
Well, they bolstered this defense bigly here. In the 3rd, 74th, Brayton Trice, Washington defensive end.
I like him.
Good player.
Good
He
player.
is second on the depth chart right now. Rook Ororo is also second on the depth chart.
They'll both. I mean, you can make the case Rook will be starting at some point.
They'll be in the rotation. They'll be playing a lot.
Both of them.
In the 4th, 109, Brandon Dorius, Oregon defensive end. Also
Another guy
second on
that'll
the
be in
depth
that
chart.
rotation. They'll just be rotating these guys in and out.
143, J.D. Bertrand, Notre Dame linebacker.
I don't know much about him, Mike. You know anything about him?
Yeah, I mean, he was the shot caller on a pretty stout defense over the last couple of years.
Okay.
Then 187, Casey Washington, Illinois wide receiver, and 197, Zion Lug, Georgia defensive lineman.
Can't go wrong with drafting them boys from Georgia.
Overall, what do we think of Atlanta's offseason? Obviously, it's going to be inflated by the quarterback signing.
You know what? I didn't realize they did as well as they did lower in the draft.
Really? I'm
And I think
surprised.
they really did well. Even though they took Penix at 8, which was, I believe, was a stupid move. But, Not after you just sign a guy for all the money you did and to take a quarterback. Kind of fucking surprises me because all you need is a guy to steer the ship if he ain't ready.
Well, here's the thing. You give him an A for the Kirk Cousins signing, right? And then it moves down to a B for the Penix draft pick.
But I thought their draft was good overall. Was good.
I can't disagree, but
I don't think you waste an 8th pick unless you're
there.
I mean, why take quarterback? It didn't make any sense to me unless he dropped that far and they were this high on this guy and they thought they were getting a steal.
If you take Kirk Cousins out of the equation,
It makes sense.
well, it makes sense, but their offseason was not that great without the Kirk Cousins signing. And then the glaring issue is the Penix pick, right? Those two things really fuck each other up.
Yeah.
So time will tell if it was mismanaged or not. But right now, if you take Cousins out of it, their offseason was lackluster. And due to the fact that they took Michael Penix, their draft was good, but not great.
It's not going to set them back, Penix. And
It just didn't get them ahead.
They have their reasons for doing it. They've gone on record. Like there's ties to it. Like there's a conversation about when Raheem Morris was there last time and Matt Ryan got injured, and you just had a chance to make. You could have been the Houston Texans this year. You had a chance to really make yourself better, and you didn't. It's it's not a status quo because you're better than Kirk Cousins already, but you had a chance to do a little bit more, and you didn't do that.
Should we move on to Carolina?
Yeah.
Last year's worst team, who did not own their first overall pick, Chicago did. They got rid of everybody and hired Dave Canales, the former Bucs offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not going to lie. If there was one offense that I wouldn't want to plan my team around from last year, I don't know if it would have been the Bucs, but God bless. They promoted Dan Morgan from assistant GM to general manager. They brought in Brad Isaac.
Dan Morgan, he used to play linebacker.
Are you asking me?
I think he did actually.
Yeah. I think I know who it is. Okay.
Brad Idzik, offensive coordinator. He was the Tampa wide receiver coach.
Okay.
And then they retained Ejiro Evero, who was in a lot of head coaching talks. He was the interim head coach. He is the defensive coordinator.
Okay.
So to start off their offseason, they traded Brian Burns to make things that much better to the Giants in exchange for a second and a fifth. Wow. They extended defensive tackle Derek Brown 4 years, $96 million. Now,
Deserved it. Solid guy. Been a solid guy for the past 5-6 years.
he deserved. Do you think Brian Burns wanted to be there anymore?
Yeah, Dan Morgan was a linebacker. I messed
What's
up
that?
the draft, by the way, on here.
What did you say?
You got to pull up another draft class. That's the wrong one.
That's okay.
Dan Morgan was a linebacker.
Yeah. That's a good.
The Brian
Hear that,
Burns
Bruce?
thing is a big fucking
Hear that?
loss for them.
Dan Morgan. He was a linebacker in the NFL. I know who he is.
After that, they acquired wide receiver Deontay Johnson from the Steelers.
Did you already do Derek Brown? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Yes, we did.
The Derek Brown thing, that's the reason why they didn't pay Brian Burns, by the way. They weren't going to pay both of those guys, and they felt like they could get capital for Brian Burns, and I'm sure they could have.
It makes
Derek
sense.
Brown,
You
but
got a guy that's
you can't pay both of them.
Brian Burns, even 25 yet?
Might be.
He might be 26.
Maybe. But he's a premier player in this league.
They got wide receiver Deontay Johnson from the Steelers in exchange for corner Dante Jackson.
Okay.
The funniest part about all of this is they have an owner, and his name is David Tepper. And David Tepper's been in the news as of late.
He's an incredible douchebag too, isn't he?
Well, yeah, if you remember, he was throwing drinks on people last year in the stands from his suite. And
Peeing off the balcony on his suite.
he got into a fight at a restaurant for an owner that put up a sign criticizing the Panthers draft. And he got into a fight with said restaurant owner. And then it also came out that essentially he forced management to draft Bryce Young. So, sounds like a recipe for success there in Carolina with that ownership situation. But that's neither here nor there. What do you think the pressure's like on Bryce Young right now? After seeing what Stroud did last year.
You know what?
And then you have this whole new group of young quarterbacks coming in who are all in probably better situations than him outside of the New England situation. How much pressure is on Bryce Young to do something this year? We're not talking playoffs, but like to not be the worst team in football.
It's going to be tough. They didn't have any kind of. They only had 4 draft picks this year. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
You know, they would you say they have improved their receiver room now?
Well,
from what it was last year.
let's talk about
I mean, he didn't have fucking anybody to throw to last year.
To strengthen up their defense, they did get Jadeveon Clowney, 2 years, $20 million.
That's not strengthening your defense. You give up Burns and grab that. That's ridiculous.
They tried to solid up their offensive line a little bit. They got center Robert Hunt, 5 years, $100 million.
That's good. The guy they got from Miami.
Yep.
That's huge right there.
And then Damian Lewis, 4 years, $53 million. He's a guard.
Yep.
Then they went on to get Josie Jewell, Sean Robinson.
Didn't he retire?
No,
I thought Josie Drew retired.
no.
Okay.
Josie Jewell, Sean Robinson. Couple decent pieces there for your defense. Offensive tackle Yosh Nijman.
Okay.
Linebacker DJ Wanham.
Okay.
Linebacker Kalavon Chasen.
Okay.
Safety Jordan Fuller and wide receiver David Moore.
Actually, he's a D end. Chasen is a D end. Played for LSU. He was drafted by Jacksonville.
They re-signed a few guys.
Okay.
Running back Raheem Blackshear.
Okay. You had a pretty good year last year, no?
Wide receiver
Blackshear.
Emer Smith Marset.
Okay.
And also cornerback Troy Hill.
Okay.
So far, is any of this moving the needle for either of you that the Panthers aren't going to be the worst team in football?
I can't guarantee that.
Outside of the Brian Burns thing, they lost a lot of shit on their defense. And I don't know if you've seen that yet, but if you keep scrolling down.
Well, here we go.
Go ahead.
Linebacker Frankie Louvu.
Who was arguably their best inside tackler that they had there.
Defensive end Eder Gross Matos.
He was actually a little disappointment for them. He wasn't effective as they thought he was going to be.
Safety Jeremy Chin.
That's big.
I knew you were going
I
to.
don't care what anybody says. Jeremy Chin's still a solid guy.
And obviously Brian Burns.
Yeah,
I actually think they had a
that's
decent,
fucking huge.
They had a decent free agency, and to your question, do I think they're going to be the worst team? Same drill as Atlanta. You're going to go, and any team for that matters. You're going to go as the quarterback does, and if Bryce Young improves, that should go a long way for this team. But I didn't hate their free agency class. I also didn't hate their. I didn't hate a lot.
I thought they dumped a lot of salary by cutting the players that they cut.
I like the continuity on defense with
Yeah.
Ibero coming back. I think they play teams tough defensively.
Yeah.
And he almost got the head coaching. He was the interim coach, and the fact that they kept him was great. And I thought Dave Canales was low-key one of the better, and I've been wrong about this before, but I thought he was one of the better hires for head coaches.
And I actually like their draft.
Moving on to their draft.
No.
In the first round, pick 22, they selected wide receiver Xavier Legette out of South Carolina, who has just been going viral.
One of the best receivers in the draft, too. And he's from there. He went to South Carolina. He's from right across the border. He's a great player.
If you haven't looked him up, look him up. His accent is awesome.
They obviously had to trade pick 230 or 33. They moved up from round 2, pick 1 to go grab him. I think they traded with the Bills. Yeah, they traded the Bills at that last pick, and then they got back in. So they didn't have a first because it went to Chicago, but this was a relatively good pick. Like, they needed a receiver.
I think that was a really nice pick.
Yeah.
Then they went and got a running back in the second round, Jonathan Brooks out of Texas with pick 46.
There were better running backs available at that point. That was my only knock.
In the third round, linebacker out of Kentucky, Trevin Wallace with pick 72.
Great pick. Great pick. Physical, gets downfield, plays sideline to sideline. He'll fit right in Avero's defense.
In the fourth round, they took a tight end, the one out of Texas, Jatavian Sanders.
It's funny because there were so many teams. Like it was a common theme with a lot of these teams that had some good pass catchers. Like Washington was 3 or 4 pass catchers and a tight end deep. This was another team. Was Texas was 3 or 4 pass catchers and a tight end deep. LSU was 2 or 3 pass catchers and a tight end deep. Like there's just a lot. And Jatavian Sanders is actually and the last one's Florida State. Florida State had like 3 receivers and a tight end get drafted. He's good. Jatavian Sanders is really good, and he did a lot of. Quinn Ewers made a lot of teams look good a lot of his players look good last year, and Sanders might have been one of them. But that's a good little asset there for what he could be one of the more quiet, productive pass catchers in the draft, and they needed a tight end, so it's good get for the Panthers.
In the 5th round, they selected Washington State corner Chow Smith-Wade at pick 157.
That sounds like Leon's order from Wang Fu Hua.
Shout out to President Baker in the chat. He actually went out of his way to text me to tell me that we weren't giving him any love today. So, longtime friend of the show, President Baker in the chat. There's your Wong's Fu Wall order. Chow Smith-Wade.
Oh, God.
In the 6th round, they took Jaden Crumdy, defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. And then in the 7th round, with pick number 240, they took Michigan linebacker Michael Barrett.
That's not bad for not having a first-round pick. That's not a bad draft.
Not awful.
They're in the thick of it. They gotta develop some of this talent. It's gonna come down to Bryce Young, who I still think is good. I think he's gonna be good. I think they gotta get him a few more pass catchers, but Legette's a really nice start, and he's a great player. So.
I agree. As far as the depth chart for Carolina goes, I'm sure that a lot of us can guess this. Deontay Johnson's number 1 with Legette behind him. The tight end, Sanders, is number 1 on the depth chart. A lot of these guys are going to come in and immediately get playing time.
And Thielen's still there, right?
Thielen is still there. He's 3rd.
I mean, you went from DJ Chark and Thielen to Legette, Sanders, Thielen, and Deontay Johnson. It's a step in the right direction.
That's an upgrade.
Chuba Hubbard's number 1 on the depth chart at running back. Chuba fucking Hubbard. Moving on. Well, first, what did we think of Carolina's offseason?
It was interesting. They cleared out a lot of money to be able to do a little bit more in free agency to bring some guys in to put in a role position.
Shall we go on to New Orleans? They hired offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, former Niners passing game coordinator. Was there a team in the league that had more identity issues than the Saints?
We talked about it all year, and I think that's going to continue, by the way.
They decided to hold on to Derek Carr. They signed Chase Young to a 1-year, $13 million deal. They signed linebacker Willie Gay away from Kansas City.
That's big.
They extended Demario Davis 2 years, $17.5 million.
You think that defense will look good with Davis and Will Gay next to each other? You know, those 2 guys that can run and make plays all over the field.
My only concern is that Demario Davis is going to be 36 when the season starts.
Nah, he's still solid. He's a thumper.
They extended the Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu 2 years, $13.75
That,
million.
to me, is interesting.
Why?
It just is. It's just because he hasn't been able to get in one spot and stay there.
Well, it's not like he's unproductive. He's just not over the top. But that deal also reflects that. They're looking at a potential trade partner for safety Marshawn Lattimore.
That is a little dated. The owner came out today, and it was noted that Lattimore showed up to an off-season golf outing, and for that reason, they think that everything's all good and everyone's just going to continue moving forward. And Lattimore's not going to hold out, and they're not going to trade him, and they're going to run it back with Lattimore as well.
That's big.
He's on his end. I mean, it's if they're going to trade him because he's overpaid. Great player. He's overpaid, and he hasn't been healthy in a couple years. So everything's all good, and he's staying in New Orleans this season. And that defense is pretty formidable, in my opinion, with some of these additions.
So far, those additions make this defense not half bad. They signed offensive tackle Olisimika Udoa, linebacker Kaliki Hudson, wide receiver Stanley Morgan, wide receiver Cedric Wilson, and quarterback Nathan Peterman. Anybody do anything for you there?
No.
It's just camp bodies, it looks like.
They re-signed safety Jonathan Abram and safety Ugo Amadi.
Okay.
And now we get to the losses. Quarterback Jameis Winston.
I don't know. How much of a loss is that?
Wide receiver Michael Thomas.
Who hasn't signed anywhere yet, by the way. Still
out there?
He's a lion. I'm telling you, he's a lion.
You really think so?
Yeah, it'll happen closer to camp.
He's an X.
It'll happen closer to camp or like mid-camp. It'll happen.
You think so?
Yeah, he's an X. New Orleans connection. It makes a lot of sense to me. He's exactly what they need.
Dan Campbell's weaving a web behind closed doors.
So I think it would have happened by now, but maybe they don't like the medical, or on top of that, they don't like his presence in the locker room. Is the only thing I could think of. Is they don't think he's one of their guys.
They also lost defensive end Zach Braun, defensive end Malcolm Roach, cornerback Isaac Yiddom, offensive lineman
Andres Pete,
and safety Marcus May.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't see anything here that's earth-shattering.
Well, here's the thing. Andres Pete was a first-round pick for them. If I'm not mistaken, no?
I think he was.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about some serious guys here. Even the Zach Baum guy was a high pick for them.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if they haven't performed, you gotta know when to sell. You gotta know when to sell
Marcus
out.
May, they got him from the Jets, no?
Yeah, but again,
Marcus May from the Jets.
They're pretty deep at safety at the moment.
Yeah.
The draft class. With pick 14 in the first round, they took Talise Fuagua,
Guy's a fucking monster.
offensive lineman, Oregon State. He is
with
number
that, Mike?
one on the depth chart.
Guy's a fucking monster.
It's an upgrade over Andres Pete, too.
Well, you want to know what's funny? He actually jumped your guy from last year, Trevor Penning, on the depth chart.
Trevor's had some issues. He's had some issues. They've asked him to leave a couple of times. He's a little bit fucking insane. I would have signed him. I think he would have flourished under Dan Campbell. That's my opinion. Go ahead.
With the 41st pick, they took cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama.
Good player.
Pretty much any single draft that you looked at for the Lions had Kool-Aid McKinstry coming here.
Yep.
So if they took him at pick 41 and the Lions were projected to take him in the 20s,
Right.
not bad value, I would say. In the 5th, they took a quarterback, and that quarterback was Spencer Rattler from South Carolina.
A lot of experience. Rattler has a lot of experience. Played a lot of college football.
Then they had another 5th-round pick, and they went and took Bub Means, the Pittsburgh wide receiver. Anything on Bub Means?
He's quick.
At pick 175, also in the 5th round, they took the Texas linebacker Jalen Ford. In the 6th, 199, Christian Boyd, the UNI defensive lineman. I don't even know where UNI is.
University of Northern Illinois.
Northern Iowa, I thought.
Iowa?
Yeah.
Iowa. You're right.
Iowa. And at 239 in the 7th round, they took Hosea Isram, Eastern Kentucky tackle.
Back to Christian Boyd real quick. That's a guy the Lions took a few flyers on. He's very versatile, very athletic. They had a good draft. I didn't really realize it until I'm looking at this right now, but they had a really good draft. Like, I see a lot of guys that are going to contribute, and who knows? Like, did we have a Spencer Rattler conversation already?
We did, kind of.
He had like a late 2nd round, early 3rd round grade on him, and the knock on him was character. I don't even know what it was. Of course, he wasn't in that class of quarterback at the top 6, but he was the next guy to go, and he's a good player. And who knows? Like, that's a better option, in my opinion, than.
This is the kind of guy you got to watch out for. Played a lot of college football. A lot of college football.
Well, if let's say Derek Carr starts shitting the bed,
Yep.
You see it happening?
Yeah. It won't happen early, but I could totally see this. I mean,
Rattler
he's
is
throwing a lot of
Derek
players.
Carr loses the team, like he lost the Raiders, then you could see them go to him.
Rattler is currently third in the depth chart behind Derek Carr and Jake Henner.
Who?
Jake
Hainer.
Hainer.
Oh, the
Henner.
kid from the kid from Fresno. Hayner was a good
They
football
drafted
player.
last year.
Huh?
They drafted him last year.
Yeah.
And they got Nathan Peterman down there at 4. My biggest thing here is pass catchers still. Really isn't that many. I mean, you have Chris Olave, A.T. Perry, the Bub Means guy, Equiminius St. Brown.
Well, they added him in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, but
Yeah, but they got the one kid too. What's his name?
Juwan Johnson at tight end,
No.
Rashid Shaheed.
There you go. They got Shaheed.
I'm sorry.
Shaheed's kind of the stretch the field guy.
I think there was a lot more that they could have done in free agency that they didn't really capitalize on offensively, and they didn't really do anything to make this offense better than what they had last year with Derek Carr. Personally, it looks like a repeat.
That defense, though.
The defense looks nice, but we didn't really bitch about the Saints' defense last year.
Their defense kept them in a lot of ball games
Right.
last year.
I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I think they're going to,
I agree.
I think they're going to run the ball a lot. That's all.
Just keep feeding Kamara till he dies.
So that's what I was going to ask. Was he suspended or was he not suspended last year? I know he was injured
He
for a
missed
second.
3 games last year, I believe.
But I think those were suspension misses.
Correct.
So I think they're just going to run it through him and Taysom Hill. They're going to do that Taysom Hill thing again. And
Well, they got the kid behind him that's pretty good too that they drafted last.
They have Jamal Williams there still, and then Condre Miller.
him.
Yeah.
Kendrick Miller.
yeah, and they gave him a lot of reps too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good draft, right?
I think you can make the case that it's the best draft we've talked about so far.
Off season overall.
Good defensively, meh offensively.
Should we talk about the Buccaneers and end this dumpster fire of a division? They brought in Kentucky offensive coordinator Liam Cohen to replace Dave Canales after he was hired by the Panthers, obviously. After that,
Does
They
Todd Bowles keep his job this year? You think so?
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Do you think they're going to have similar year that they had last year?
he's never not made the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think that comes to an end with if I'm right about Atlanta. I think that comes to an end.
Yeah.
you've claimed Atlanta now.
I never wasn't high on Atlanta. I just wasn't high on Desmond Ridder. That's all. And Arthur Smith didn't know what the fuck he was doing.
They re-signed Mike Evans, 2 years, $41 million.
If
Most
you don't, you're
consistent
stupid.
receiver over the last 10 years.
Underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under fucking rated.
That's kind of a deal too
Yeah. Realistic. I
for
mean,
that guaranteed production you're
yeah,
gonna get out of
$20
him.
million a year.
You're gonna get 1,000 yards and probably like 6 to 12 TDs out of him.
And you just spent what on Amon-Ra? 32 million?
Yeah.
They re-signed Baker Mayfield for 3 years, $100 million.
That's a deal.
Oh, Jesus.
That's a fucking deal, dude.
Yeah, the way these deals have been laid out, hypothetically, it's a
Yeah.
deal because we're
What's
taking
the
him-
guaranteed money?
I don't know,
It's under $100 million, obviously.
but we're taking him over a lot of quarterbacks,
Yeah.
and the money that's going to get tossed out to Trevor Lawrence and Tua and Dak over the next couple weeks.
Yep.
I wouldn't put Baker in that category, but when you're getting him for $30 million and he went to the playoffs last year and gave you a good season, I agree with you.
I'm trying to think this out off the top of my head. I think there's 2 starting quarterbacks I would take Baker Mayfield above.
I mean, he went to the playoffs last year.
He didn't go to the playoffs last year.
I'm going to tell you this.
They were
about
gifted a playoff spot last year.
I think their defense overall improved.
Well, let's talk about it. They tagged Antoine Winfield.
Right.
They traded Carlton Davis to Detroit for a 3rd-round pick.
He was hurt mostly, never really played.
They signed Randy Gregory,
Okay.
Bryce Hall,
Good, solid player.
safety Jordan Whitehead,
Solid player.
Guard Ben Bredson.
As a Michigan guy, no? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And running back Chase Edmonds.
I don't have a problem with any of that. I think that improves their team right there.
They re-signed Levante David to a 1-year, $10 million deal.
Best linebacker in football right now. Him and Bobby Wagner. Go ahead.
They re-signed defensive tackle Greg Gaines, kicker Chase McLaughlin, offensive tackle Justin Skule, I don't fucking know, and quarterback John Wolford.
That's a big help.
Notable losses include linebacker Devin White, Shaq Barrett, and Nick Leverett.
Well, the Shaq Barrett thing, they weren't going to pay him. He's a cap casualty, and so is Devin White.
Listen to me. This is another year where I just don't see it with them. And realistically, the division got better. You insert Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I'd say the Panthers got better too.
Panthers got better too. Saints stayed the same. So far through this free agency, you can like what they did on defense. The Devin White thing is a loss, all right? And realistically, the Shaq Barrett thing is kind of a loss too.
Yeah, but
they didn't really. Carlton Davis.
Hold on. Now, when you walk into their draft, you'll understand everything they did.
With the first round pick at 26, they took Graham Barton, offensive lineman from Duke.
The guy's a monster, dude. He's a beast. The Lions loved the guy. They wanted him.
Could play 5 positions.
Yep.
With pick 57, they took Chris Broswell, Alabama linebacker.
There you go. There's your replacement for Devin White.
He'll get some time with them.
Yep.
He'll get some good time, and he was a good player. I mean,
he's going to learn under. He's going to learn with Levante David. That's going to help him immensely.
In the third round at 89, they took Tyke Smith, Georgia defensive back.
There you go. He replaces your little Carlton Davis shit.
I don't think this guy I don't think this guy comes in and starts in Carlton Davis's spot though.
You never know.
At 92, they took Jalen McMillan, Washington wide receiver.
Good player. Solid player.
In the fourth round at 125, Bucky Irving, Oregon running back.
He's a little more shifty.
Yeah. He's a power back. He's a power back.
He's going to offer he's a nice compliment to, what's his name?
Rashad White.
White. He's going to be a compliment to Rashad White.
In the sixth round at 220, they took Elijah Clean, UTEP guard. And in the seventh round at 246, they took Devin Culp, Washington tight end. Sorry. All right, nothing there that does it for me.
I think their draft was really good.
I like their first 2 picks. I don't know. I don't know if they did enough this offseason to go out and win the division again. You're going to be a lot of it.
I don't think they're going to win the division anyway. That's my opinion. You know,
this team is
I thought they got lucky last year. They won a lot of fucking games that they could have lost. They were really inconsistent.
You think?
Huh?
You think?
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily.
This is the last ditch effort to hang on for dear life before you have to tear this shit show down and completely rebuild it.
So they're rebuilding on the fly as it is. I disagree with you. I think they've already done. No, I mean they were coming off the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs this year, it's just because they have more work to do to acquire more assets in the meantime.
Yeah, but will they?
Yeah, I think they will. I just don't think we're going to see it this year because the division's better. But in a hypothetical where Baker plays like he did last year, like this team, if that's what you're getting at quarterback, that's big for this team because that's one asset that they don't have to spend on is quarterback. And they got some pieces. They just need to add more to be, more than just a potential division winner. Like they didn't do enough to graduate past that. But remember, they pushed the Lions. I know they didn't. They ended up losing by 10. But they pushed the Lions at
Baker had a great game in that
he
game
did.
that was here.
Baker had a really decent game.
Yeah.
And he had a decent game against the Eagles, too. It's just not enough. I don't think this is enough to unseat Atlanta. Atlanta, the wheels completely fell off because they just didn't have the pieces and they were getting managed very poorly. I don't think there's enough to right that at the moment.
You look at it right now, Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in that division.
Well, I mean, you're
Bar
comparing
none.
him to HR Puff and stuff and fucking
He's
Derek
the best
Carr.
quarterback in there. I would say he's the best. I would put Mayfield behind him,
Who?
Cousins, and then I would put basically.
I hate to
you
break it.
do-
Derek Carr and Baker
Derek
Mayfield
Carr
are the same
and-
fucking guy, dude.
No,
No, I don't.
Derek Carr would have won the division then, and he didn't.
He should have won the
What was it?
division.
A 1 game difference?
I mean, he was injured too. Derek Carr was injured, but
Yeah.
he had the same. They played the same teams down the stretch. In the
Atlanta,
shittest division.
New Orleans,
Atlanta choked
Eagles
against
32.
Carolina. Right?
Carolina.
Atlanta, because Atlanta would have won.
None of those teams have any kind of a identity.
And you're saying Tampa does have an identity, right? Offensively,
Better than them other guys.
I think they let their defense talk.
Who had Dennis Allen there and fucking
Listen,
New
I mean,
Orleans?
Todd
Give me a
Bowles
break,
does not
man.
have an offensive identity.
That might be where.
No, but his identity is defense.
That
That's
might be
what
where
his
Belichick
identity-
ends up.
Huh?
Is New Orleans? I think that's where Belichick ends up. They get aggressive. They go get Quinn Ewers or they go get someone at quarterback. They get aggressive at
Okay.
quarterback and then they bring in.
What if he
Belichick.
went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl without Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield?
Wow.
Yeah, what if fucking Baker Mayfield makes it to the Super Bowl and wins? You're going to have to eat your words. You're going to have to buff Todd Bowles' fucking head.
Listen. Let's see if Aaron Rodgers makes it to his 5th play of the season this year
to me.
before we start talking about
Aaron
fucking
Rodgers,
Todd
top,
Bowles.
top 3 quarterback in this league.
Yeah, anyways. What, 8 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so out of this shit show that we have here, all right, the Atlanta thing, let's break it down. Obviously, the Kirk Cousins signing, they get an A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we think that, okay, first and foremost, is there a clear winner if the offseason in this division and a clear loser? I think this is honestly the toughest one to judge so far.
Carolina,
Carolina's the what?
the best because they could only go up.
I thought I was going to say Carolina. I thought was the losers.
Okay, so Carolina. No, I disagree. Carolina had the best all around offseason.
Correct.
If
Between
you
all-
factor in
Right.
their free agency moves with their draft, it's not. Again, we've had this conversation with a lot of these divisional assessments that we've done, but I don't know if it's enough to move the needle. I think the best draft was the Saints draft, and it's not even close.
Really?
I think they had a good free agency defensively. I don't think
Yeah.
they did enough offensively. I don't understand what they saw to run it back with Derek Carr another year.
I don't understand that either.
You can't tell me that there wasn't someone that they couldn't have gobbled up, in my opinion. Just my
They
opinion.
gobbled
they
up
should have traded up for Michael Penix.
Spencer Rattler.
So are we saying the Saints had the second best offseason then, besides Carolina?
I didn't love the Saints draft, so
No, you said the Saints had the best draft.
excuse me, I didn't love the Saints. Their free agency was mostly defensive focused. I think they're just going to be stuck in the mud a lot of the times because they're going to try and
I agree.
go score, and nothing's going to come of it.
They got Taysom Hill.
It worked last year. It worked against the Lions.
Yep.
Well, then, so your other options, if we put Carolina 1, are Atlanta, which you really should give it to them because the Kirk Cousins signing was the biggest signing.
Yeah, fair.
All right, so we'll say Atlanta had the
and I
second
didn't
best.
hate their draft.
No,
Even
their-
Michael
their
Penix. I think
draft-
Michael Penix is a good player. I didn't hate their draft.
New Orleans 3, Tampa 4.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Thankfully. Out of all 4 of these teams that we just talked about, is there one that you could see tanking for a quarterback?
Yeah, it would be New Orleans. I don't know about openly tanking. I think they have a competitive team because they're returning a team that almost won the division last year.
I don't think any of them are tanking for a quarterback,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Do you think Derek Carr makes it out of this season alive?
Yes.
Does alive mean injured or as the
starting
starter?
quarterback of the New Orleans
No,
Saints?
I don't. I don't.
If they don't fix their issues, like Dennis Allen doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, they don't fix that, and you could just fucking basically put a fork in him because he'll lose his team just like he did with the Raiders, and then they'll run him out the door and run with Rattler and try to win a few games to get a nice pick next year.
And I certainly don't think they made many preemptive moves to say that we're going to graduate this year.
No. I don't think they got any worse than they were last year, but I don't think they got any better either. They kind of just fucking swapped out some fucking players for other players, and
They changed out cosmetic parts.
whatever. They didn't do much, dude.
Wednesday, we have NFC East. That'll be a good one. If you recall, last week you said Washington was going to win that division.
Why, did you think I was talking shit?
I didn't know if you were high or just having an episode or what.
You guys will see when Cardinals fucking win their division this year.
Anything to add? Anything to add? Anything to add? Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Tip Balls Podcast. Make sure to follow our socials, Instagram and Twitter at Tip Balls, TikTok at Tip Balls Podcast. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, you can watch us on YouTube. And remember to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when we go live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, sometime around 5. And make sure to check out www.tippedballs.com to read our latest blog posts under the blog section, Tipped Thoughts. Thank you guys so much for listening. NFC East coming at you on Wednesday. You will see us then. Thanks.